Well, hello there, it's me, Vivi, and welcome back to another video. Ratchet Clank Rift Apart has an average review score of 89 on Metacritic. My prediction was 85 to 90. Guess I was really close, so it's absolutely fantastic to hear that Rift Apart has a great review score. Although Rift Apart has a great score, it shouldn't primarily be how you perceive the game. After all, the 2016 reimagining, which has a lot of mixed feelings, well, that too has a good score. Just a little something to keep in mind, alright? So going back at its average review score, 89 is close to the numbers we had with the previous entries, like Going Commando, Up Your Arsenal, A Crack in Time even. So this score right here ain't too surprising, but it is great. Alas, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart so far is shaping up to be one of the best Ratchet & Clank games out there. And just to remind you folks, before I dive deeper into all this, I have not played this game yet. One day I will, hopefully. And for those of you playing Rift Apart right now, I hope you're having a blast with the game. So what I thought would be interesting for this video, well, discussing the common pros and cons we've been hearing from reviewers so far. I hope you enjoy the video and let's dive straight into it. Alright, let's start with the good stuff we've been hearing so far. The game is beautiful. It's a great way to showcase the PS5. I've lost count as to how many times I've heard the word PIXAR. This game looks like a PIXAR movie. Probably 100 times. Fast load times. We can all agree on that. The game was conceptualized for the PlayStation 5 and it shows. This game takes full advantage of the PS5's capabilities, from sound design, to the feel, the haptics, the adaptive triggers, and the visuals. All those things take the cake. That seamless transitioning between gameplay and cutscenes especially makes the game very cinematic. Like I said, I haven't played this yet, but from the gameplay footage I've seen floating around and cutscenes, I'm not gonna spoil you guys with the story, don't you even worry. This is one of the best visually looking games I've ever come across. It's a fantastic visual spectacle. I think we can all agree on this one. Phantom dashing and using the Rift tether shows how Insomniac Games took field combat to a whole other level. From the common things I've heard, gameplay is pretty much linear for planets, but still interesting with all the nooks and crannies to explore. There is one exception, however. There is one area in the game where it's pretty much more open. And if I make a guess, I take it people are referring to planet Savali. And if I'm not mistaken, Savali I feel is many's favorite. Alright, now comes the part where it gets a bit more technical. There are 3 visual modes for gameplay in Rift Apart: Fidelity, Performance, and Performance RT. Both performance modes were part of the day 1 patch of the game. Fidelity mode, well, this mode is set by default. The game runs at 4K resolution with as much detail they can fit in as possible. In this case, we got ray tracing, RT short for ray tracing, enhanced lighting, additional video effects, and increased scene density. Next, we have Performance RT. This allows for ray tracing with 60 FPS. However, picture quality is lowered. Performance, also 60 FPS with no ray tracing this time. So with no ray tracing, you get better picture quality. The majority have played this game on Performance RT, you know, to enjoy the 60 FPS and ray tracing at the same time. Technically speaking, just like Miles Morales, which received an update eventually, well, when the game is running at 60 FPS, the game utilizes what we call temporal injection, which upscales the image to 4K. Back in 2018, around the time of Marvel's Spider-Man on PlayStation 4, you know, during its launch, Al Hastings at Insomniac Games, when referring to the PS4 Pro and that game, he explained this. Temporal injection is a technique we use to create a full 4K image on the PS4 Pro without rendering every pixel on every single frame. We render slightly more than half the pixels, then inject them into a full-sized 4K image. By slightly jittering the locations of the rendered pixels from frame to frame, we can reconstruct a very accurate, anti-aliased, full 4K image over a handful of frames. There are other teams using similar techniques, but with slight variations in the implementation. Now you might ask, what if I don't have a 4K TV and I decide to play Rift Apart on a 1080p TV? Well, since your TV doesn't support 4K, looking at the PS4 Pro for example, you can toggle on/off super sampling. super sampling can improve picture quality. However, 1080p displays don't have HDR, which gives you more detailed or, brighter colors. As for the PlayStation 5, it's unknown as of right now, or it could just be on all the time. I'm referring to super sampling. At least there's no option to manually toggle on/off super sampling. By the way, just out of curiosity, if you just so happen to be playing Rift Apart on your 1080p TV, how does it look? I'm really curious. Anywho, speaking of FPS and all that, from players' experience, the game didn't suffer from frame drops or slowdowns, even with wild activity happening on screen. Very, very minimal frame drop from what I've heard, regardless of which visual setting you play on. Next, reviewers have also been bringing up the humor of the game. It's funny, apparently. There's a right balance for everyone playing, newcomers and, longtime fans or adults at this point. It's like a nice middle ground between what we had in the 2016, the kid-friendly feel, and the future saga. As for the theme of the story, there's friendship, there's trust, bond, courage, even mental health. From what I've read as well, the story, it's very simplistic and yet interestingly well put together. Especially Rivet's side of things, how she deals with her own vulnerabilities and how she's developed as a character throughout the story. Some wish the story had gone deeper into the lore. Then again, if you think about it, it is a standalone game marketed towards, both audiences. This game is meant to cater to newcomers and longtime fans, so I'm not too surprised to find out that it doesn't dive that deep into the lore. Well, if I make a guess, I take it this is from a cutscene perspective. As for other things you collect, maybe there's some hidden stuff in there. As for the music, Mark Mothersbaugh. The feeling of the music, the tone and all, in Rift Apart, it's a mixed bag. Some say it hints at the style of music from the past history of the franchise, the original trilogy. Others still deemed it forgettable. For me personally, what I've heard so far, the music of Blizzard Prime. Having heard this one, it really sets the tone of previous games, with its very alien theme-like feel. If any composition reminded me of the original trilogy, it'd be Blizzard Prime's. So with that said, let's move on to the more, the cons part. Common things I've been reading. Technical issues. The one I've seen quite a few times, mainly. If your TV supports 120Hz, and you're trying to play the game on performance mode, either of the two, the PlayStation 5 will automatically just play the game at 1080 120Hz. Insomniac Games explained that you have to disable 120Hz in your PS5's output settings. The PS5 suffers from random total shutdowns, which is pretty much tied to the whole 120Hz situation. Some people have been experiencing black screens playing the game on 120Hz. In a case such as this, Insomniac Games pretty much has been telling players to reinstall the game or update to the latest patch. Insomniac Games also tweeted out saying if you encounter any bugs, you can try tech support. In the replies of this tweet, there's quite some other bugs players have been encountering. Example of common issues I've heard, following the Phantom mission, where the screw remains stuck. Insomniac Games explained that you can load up a backup save by going to the file select, selecting load game, and then choosing the recent backup. IG made sure they implemented backup saves in the game. There is also the endless rift bug, where you're just in a rift forever, turning and turning. As for Mrs. Zircon, technically when there's battle going on the field, she shuts down shop. Sometimes she gets stuck that way, so you either exit the planet, come back, or restart the game. Hopefully these kinds of issues get sorted out via patches eventually. As for the speedo sections, I don't know about you folks watching this video right now, but some felt like it slowed down the momentum and people couldn't wait to just go back to regular gameplay with Rivet or Ratchet. As for the length of the game, this is something I've read a lot as well. What I heard, if you take your time, you platinum the game, it could take between 12 to 16 hours. That's the average I've been seeing online. If not, if you really rush through the story, it could take you like 4 to 6 hours. Now, 12 to 16 hours, that's typical for a Ratchet & Clank game. I guess with the whole PS5 exclusive next-gen Ratchet & Clank game, people thought it'd be a bigger game than usual. Especially considering the fact that this game was marketed as a full-length title. I take it when that was mentioned by Insomniac Games, people believed it'd be the biggest Ratchet & Clank game ever. So in other words, some players wanted more content in the game. And about the platinum, yes, you can get it on your first playthrough if you take your time. There's also the lack of enemy variety, or the recycling of robots, especially when referring to arena battles. As for enemy AI, some people have always been ending up behind the enemy. You know, when phantom dashing or just moving around. They simply wished that the AI of enemies had them get confused or move around when you phantom dash and all that. Some also feel like the most challenging aspect of the game would be arena battles. As for Clank puzzles, it's a nice breather apparently, and it's not too difficult of a challenge. It's simply satisfying to accomplish. I also heard you can skip both Clank puzzles and glitch challenges if you're playing Rift Apart for its action and not puzzles. Another thing I've been reading, the fact that Rivet is a reskin of Ratchet. How they play too similarly. Well actually, this is something IG had thought about when making this game. So, in terms of gameplay, they didn't want a situation where the player would prefer to play as either Rivet or Ratchet. So they thought it'd be easier to have Rivet and Ratchet feel similar, gameplay-wise. And you know, the whole sharing of weapons and currency. But then looking at some of the reviews, it's like the opposite situation. Some people wish that Rivet played differently, like having her own set of unique skills. But then Insomniac Games was simply afraid that people would just put the controller down because they didn't like playing as Rivet or Ratchet if they were to be too different. So yeah, with that being said, again, reminder, these are simply things I've read from articles and reviews. I personally haven't played the game yet, so I don't want to be too quick to judge the game myself. But hey, I thought this would be an interesting topic to see if you guys could relate to some of the stuff mentioned in the video. So feel free to share your own thoughts, your own experiences currently playing Rift Apart. So yeah, as usual, I've been Vivi and thank you for sticking around. Until next time.